Thanks for being Mjikeliso. Thanks for coming. Good to see you again. I've got McKEEVER with us as well, marketing practitioner. Thank you for your time. And on the line, we've got Tony McKEEVER as well, the former CEO of the Southern Spears. Tony, good evening. Good to chat to you again.
Hi, Peter.
And I'm going to start with you. We've been talking about transformation for what seems like the longest time ever. Have the chickens finally come home to roost?
It definitely looks like it. It definitely looks like the big players are now coming to the party. Saru, unfortunately, are the standing point, which is so ironic. They seem to be the ones that are standing between the transformation movement and it actually happening. All I'm saying is that there's a stalling process that's gone on, especially in the tenure under Heineken there. And I say stalling because it's inevitable, it has to happen. It's just a matter of when, and people are in a rush for change and are in a rush to see a Springbok team that is very representative of who they are, especially in South Africa. And then once the money pulls out, once the taps are closed in the sponsorship level, then you can bet that people are going to start doing something about it. Of course, Saru being the entity that they are, the Springboks being the brand that they are, there's always going to be someone trying to cozy up to them, trying to take advantage of this open window of negotiation as well. And they might get the sponsorship rather cheap as well, but I'm not the marketing expert. But I predict that Saru will be shaken up a bit, and they will definitely try to put some measures to stem the flow of sponsors leaving the organization.
But on that note, I'd like to go to Tony, who's on the line with us. So, Tony, I think it's fair to say that Saru has missed its transformation targets. How surprised are you that it's taken this long for a big-name sponsor to pull the plug?
Not surprised. We started out in March 2006 with the reveal of the first transformation charter, which happens to be the same document that was revealed 10 years later. So it's important to acknowledge that Professor Willie Besson, who is the author of the transformation charter, declared at the time, at March 2006, the siren call was, the game of rugby is in peril if they do not have the player profile match the demographic profile of the country. And I think what you're seeing with the announcement of ABSA with their withdrawal, ABSA obviously is in touch with their client base around the country, and they are required to match the demographic profile of the country, and they have. Whereas you found that Saru is out of step with that. And it's taken probably 10 years, and you're quite right, Peter, by saying that this has been a shock and a bit of a wake-up call, or a huge wake-up call. This is not an event, it's a process, and that process should have started about 10 years ago.
Ali, I'd like to bring you in now as well. When a corporate invests in a sports team, i.e. the Springboks, what kind of return on investment would someone like ABSA have expected?
Okay, well, when you invest in any sport for that matter, I mean, sports is the biggest sponsorship investment in the entire globe. You look at certain things like how does it affect your return on investment in terms of how much of exposure you get versus how much money you put into it. You look at stuff like what is your longevity of your exposure, and you look at how does it impact on your strategy, how does it increase your brand identity and that sort of thing, your corporate branding. Does the sports team that you sponsor, do they actually fit within what you're trying to portray as a company, for that matter? So, yeah, that's what you look at in terms of sponsorship when you sponsor a company.
Sorry, Tony, let's bring you back in there. Just get your thoughts.
I would say that a sponsor sponsors an event or a team or an activity quite simply to match their brand attributes. And those brand attributes are aspirational to their target audience. And they want to be in touch with their consumers and introduce new consumers and new client base. And obviously, ABSA felt that there was a disconnect. They're clearly in soccer, and they were in rugby, and rugby was just out of step with their demographic profile.
Would you agree with that, Alia?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they can't be seen to support something that doesn't fit within their corporate profile or their corporate identity. I mean, they're going to lose customers like that.
And it's not just ABSA. BMW has announced that they also will not be renewing their sponsorship, currently appearing on the shorts of the Springbok uniform. How much of a blow would that be to an entity like the South African Rugby Union?
It would be quite a big, I mean, those are really, really big companies. So, I mean, for them to pull out of their sponsorship, I'm not particularly sure whether their sponsorship contract has come to an end.
Yeah, it's come to an end. They've chosen not to.
Okay, so maybe their sponsorship strategies have changed. Their corporate strategies have changed. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that because this is the direction of rugby that's the reason why they're pulling out. I mean, their corporate strategies could have changed. You know?
Again, I'd like to comment on that, if I may.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
That BMW has brand icons. They made an announcement 2 weeks ago that they're investing 6 billion rand into their Rosslyn plant. Now, clearly, that's a huge investment, and they're still pursuing those brand and opinion leaders that are in support of their brand, that aspire to be part of the BMW brand. If there is not that brand offering that Saru or rugby can create at different levels of participation, then clearly the sponsors don't have that hook to hang on to, and they're going to step aside and say, you're not giving me that brand offering that is in sync with my brand offering.
So maybe I can bring you back into the conversation. How much of this do you think is about transformation versus actual performance? And a brand like BMW, which obviously is a brand of excellence, might feel that not winning a rugby championship, only getting to the semi-finals of a Rugby World Cup doesn't match with their own ideals.
Say Bafana that the sponsors that align themselves with the Springboks know that they align with a consistently performing team that's always up there in the top 2, 3 teams in the world, as well as the profile. The rugby brand is very strong in the country. I don't think it's so much about how we underperformed in the Rugby World Cup. Obviously, that is a very, very bad result for everyone involved, and you would like a winning Springbok team. It might have changed things, or might have gone to the negotiation table with matters a little tilted towards some side that the Springboks won the World Cup, for instance. Everyone wants to be associated with winners. But having said that, ABSA was very, very strong from the information that I got, that they wanted certain conditions, certain measures to be put in place for them to renew. And this wasn't just an announcement made when the story broke on Sunday yesterday, but this was a protracted negotiation which started, I believe, from the end of August, just before the World Cup, and there have been letters back and forth and meetings of which ABSA wouldn't budge in terms of what they felt they needed, certain assurities, certain contracts to be signed in order for them to be renewed, and transformation was one. And it's worrying that Saru were willing to let go of their main sponsor, ABSA, which was bringing in close to 600 million a year. I mean, for that term, and 100 million a year for the Springboks. To be willing to let that go instead of moving forward with an organization that has said to themselves, look, we need to align with broader government goals of broad economic empowerment. We need to align ourselves with education, with putting money where it really matters. And the presentation that was presented to me in private by a source shows that ABSA has a very, very broad understanding of where they can benefit as a company by moving their clientele to broadening and empowering black people in this country. They see no other way, and these are their words, they see no other way for the company to grow except to invest in the black population of this country. And
Tony, I heard you on the line wanting to say something. Here's your chance.
I can respond to that by saying that we can, out of the Eastern Cape, deliver a customized, brand-oriented product that is interactive, that can be activated in ABSA on a national basis. Think of 16 million families that emanate from the Eastern Cape that are distributed throughout the country. They can all participate in a customized activity that will be customized specifically for ABSA, and using rugby as that activity. And that could start at school with school fees, education, going into university, and with life skills after university.
Ali, if I can bring you back into the conversation. Obviously, there's not, or it appears that ABSA is done and dusted with rugby. BMW not renewing a contract as well, so that leaves Saru in a position needing to find a new sponsor or sponsors. Just talk us through what kind of conversation or presentation would actually take place when Saru approaches another sponsor. What does that? Can you describe that environment to us?
Okay, but what basically happens is that there's a negotiation process that happens. So Saru would look for a company that was able to help them or is able to enhance their brand as well as be able to help that company enhance their brand. So basically what happens is that if they, let's say, go to a company like Pure Grit, for example, okay, they're an events management company and they look at certain ways in terms of building their brand and their reputation and that sort of thing. So Saru will come to them with the presentation and say, listen, this is how I can help you, this is my viewership, this is who all puts rugby on, I think, Supersport, SABC and that sort of thing. These are how many matches we have. This is what we can offer you, and the company will be like, okay, cool. This is what we can do for you in terms of money. So it's basically a negotiation between exposure and advertising and marketing and that sort of thing. That's what it is.
And Saru should have a good product to
Absolutely.
present.
I mean, they've got the South African Springboks. Like you said, everybody wants to support them. They're consistent all the time. I mean, fair enough, they don't win, but I mean, they're a lot better than a lot of other sports teams that we have, you know. They get a lot of exposure, not only locally, but internationally, you know. I mean, sports in general transcends gender, racial, age groups, you know. So it's a brilliant way to actually sponsor and to get your brand out there.
Tony, I'll come back to you in just a second. Sbu, how much of this has got to do with transformation? And then with that in mind, would Saru now perhaps be more mindful of a more demographically representative team going forward?
Yeah, what's going to be telling Peter is obviously the Executive Council and General Council meetings which are taking place in December to decide Henneke Meier's future. And Henneke Meier, let's be fair, he's been a stumbling block in the transformation movement, a huge one at that. He picked 8 players from the 32 that he took to the World Cup, which in all fairness is a very pathetic number considering the level of talent that merited selection into his squad. Also, Saru want the Springboks to be half black by 2019. Looks a bit of a pipe dream. 2019 is 3 seasons away, and what they need to do now is take a long, hard look at whether the man that can actually put those transformation targets in place is Henneke Meier, which I personally doubt, but we'll see what the Executive Council said, a 13-member Executive Council, and plus the provinces, the 14 provinces then make up the General Council, and they give the stamp of approval. It's a lot to do with transformation. It's a lot to do with how the Springboks look. Therefore, the brand they want to be associated with unhappiness and discontent with the way that the Springboks look at the moment. Sure, what Meyer is saying by picking a lot less blacks, he's saying he can't win World Cups with black players, basically, which sends a very, very wrong message. And a lot of people will be very, very unhappy if he gets an extension of his contract. And I think Saru needs to take a long, hard look at that. But the responsibility is also provinces, because they are a big player in this decision-making. There are 14 of them. Let's hope they make the right one.
Some might say it's difficult to win a World Cup with a lock playing at flank, but that's another story. Tony, I know you wanted to weigh in.
Yes, I wanted to say Saru has its own brand attributes and it has its own assets that it puts on offer. And I think it is a little hard actually hang this whole transformation charter around the neck of Henneke Meier. He's one man. There are multiple advisors, there are multiple tiers of management and administration at Saru that participate in this. To make him the lightning rod for that is a little unfair, because this falls at the doorstep of Saru. But I have 3 words. This falls at the doorstep of Saru. But I have 3 words to say about how sponsors come together with rugby. And rugby offers multiple structures, from kids to women to amateur to professional. So rugby has a huge offering, and Saru has a remarkable structure in place, an infrastructure in place, starting from schools to clubs to provinces to the national team, including women as well. This whole thing pivots around 3 words: brand asset management. And to arrive at that magical formula and to arrive at that balance between the sponsor's brand asset and what SARU can do in terms of that brand asset management with rugby.
Tony, stay on the line. I'm going to give you the last word. We're out of time. So, Alian Sabu, thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you again in the near future. Tony, last word, as I promised, belongs to you. You were involved with the Southern Spears in the old days. Tell me a little bit about you eyeing a return to rugby, particularly in the Eastern Cape.
I would love to be involved, Peter. Within 2 weeks, we can do an extreme makeover and overhaul of the Eastern Cape area's administration on and off the field. Within 2 weeks, there are individuals on standby that have the capital and wherewithal to step in and cure this problem.
And Tony, are you eyeing a return, or is it just an idea at this stage?
Not an idea. I would love to be part of this with myself and a number of other individuals. So it's a team effort, Peter. It's not an individual effort. I would love to lead that process, and I would love to bring skilled, talented people into this process.
Tony McKEEVER, always good chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
And we'll move